Hey guys, this is your next lesson, which is on structured interviews. So I'll be going through with you bit by bit. So you should have had this PowerPoint sent to you. Just lift it up a little bit so you can see it. And the first thing it asks you to do is to write a definition. So move this forward so that's easier. You can see just here, there's the link. Click on that and get a definition of what a structured interview is. In the clip, they start going on to talk about advantages and disadvantages that we'll need, so it's worth watching the whole thing, but literally get a definition of what a structured interview is. No more than 2 sentences. Again, if you're not sure, email me because it's really important you've got a secure definition of what a structured interview is. Now, as per usual, the essay that we're planning for has 3 paragraphs, 1 on practical, 1 on ethical and 1 on theoretical. So remember PET in your exam. So that's what we'll be going through. Okie dokie. So practical issues we'll begin with, and we'll start with the advantages. Now what you can see here on the next couple of slides when we're talking about the advantages of practical issues is these are all abstracts from the victim survey. This is a structured interview that is done, it's done across the entirety of the UK. It might be worth asking your parents, some of those might have done it, even you yourself might have done it. So it's like quite a representative study, hundreds of people do it every year. Now what you can see is on the extract here, they've got some clear instructions for what the interviewer should be doing. So essentially what a structured interview is it's a script with instructions given to the interviewer, and they have to stick entirely to that script. They cannot go off it. So they've got simple instructions as they go, example which you've seen that's edited there. So they are going to have those instructions on the sheet. Now if you think back to experiments where you had actors in a room or the field experiments where you had people in the room, they had to be trained, they had to learn lines, they had to spend time which they would have been paid for to properly be explain the experiment. But this one, all the instructions are on the sheet. So thinking about that, can I get you to answer the question that comes with it, which is why this is going to make it quicker and cheaper to perform this research method than other research methods. So pause that and quickly have a go at that, and that can be a point for practical issues. Okay, now your second page looks at this, and what you can see is you've got it's kind of like a questionnaire in the sense it's closed answer questions. So you can only select from a limited range of subjects or a limited range of answers, which is going to give you quantitative data. Now, if you compare that to an unstructured interview, we looked at that Louis Freeh one where he spends a lot of time talking to the people he's with before he gets the information he finds out. Sorry, come on, Riff-Raff, out the way. Oh no, sorry. So basically you get another, sorry, I've lost track. So basically with unstructured interviews, it takes a lot of time to get that data. But with this, you're simply reading to a particular individual and you're saying to them, oh, thank you, Riff-Raff. You're saying to them, select from these 5 things rather than having a long conversation. So that's going to be quicker. And then the information you're going to get is going to be, for example, 75% of people said this. So think about why that make it easier to analyse compared to the unstructured interview we saw at the beginning of the study. Okay. However though, there's a couple of problems, and these are your evaluation points that you need to fill out. The researcher must have knowledge of what they're studying because, so think about that person has got to write, before all the interviews go out, they've got to write all the questions. So whatever they're studying, they're going to have prior knowledge to know what questions are relevant and what aren't. So start off with that. Secondly, it says on there, just pulling this back over, the structured interview cannot change once they've been sent out because everyone is sticking to a script. Now we identified why this was a problem when we looked at questionnaires. So again, if I could get you to fill out why this is a problem. Okay. Ethical issues then is our next paragraph. Now, this is where it gets a bit interesting. So, with ethical issues, the guidelines are you need to get informed consent. So the people involved, we know with experiments, at some point they were deceived because they didn't know what the research was trying to investigate. So think about why you wouldn't need to deceive people if you were simply answering their questions. So the people involved need protection from physical and emotional harm. So think about if someone's just answering quick fire questions in a safe location, why that would protect them from safety and harm. And finally, you need to protect the person's confidentiality. So we know from the previous task that the research is just percentages, statistics. So think again how that's going to protect someone's confidentiality. Okay, oops, a doodles. So that's your ethical issues. Now, here is where it gets a bit silly. I love teaching this bit because like seeing people's reactions. So this is like a gutting time not to be in a lesson. Feminists hate structured interviews because they think it reinforces patriarchy. The reason they think it reinforces patriarchy is because they think it's a male sociologist forcing female participants to answer in a particular way. So the man is deciding how the woman speaks, which reinforces patriarchal control. They don't like the fact it's an objective method because they think that's a very male way of looking at science and ignores women's feelings and emotions. So they don't like that aspect of it. And they don't like that men decide the questions either because they think that would mean that they ignore a lot of female experiences. Now this seems like quite a bizarre one, but if we remember when we did Wilmot and Young and the symmetrical family, that involved structured interviews. And you remember they went out and asked men, do you help with the housework? Now, because it was two men who came up with that study, it failed to find out that women themselves are actually still unsatisfied with housework and still quite disappointed with it. So they put a male spin on how things are getting equal. Now, this is where it gets a bit bizarre. Radical feminists themselves say structured interviews is the equivalent of raping a woman. The reason they believe this is because you are going in, forcing women to speak in a certain way and not giving them aftercare. So they do see it as the equivalent of rape. So that's you need to kind of, those bullet points that I've put in front of you, if I could get you to summarise them into a paragraph that you would use as your evaluation. Now with this paragraph, you'll see, because there's two different perspectives, your explanation is a bit smaller and your evaluation is a bit larger. So for this paragraph, it becomes more like 50-50. You'll where we're used to with family and education, it would be like 75% explanation, 25% evaluation. Some of you will notice that change. Okay, now our last thing is theoretical issues. So I've got this little lovely on my lap. Now our last one is theoretical issues. So if you remember, we look at reliability, representativity and representative. Now what you will see is I have attached an actual study that was from a book, and it was done on poverty in Leeds. Now, I've got dyslexia, and because I can't scan or photocopy things in, I had to literally copy this out from a book. So if there was any mistakes or if anything doesn't make sense, can you just let me know? Because I'm not trying to make excuses here. I do struggle with copying, but I've read it through and I don't think there are any mistakes. But if there are any, and you're not sure what it means, just let me know. So you'll see they found statistics on the level of poverty in structured interviews. Sorry, I'll just be a second. So going down, you've got a few questions and I'm just going to help you. So the first one you should be okay with, but just to remind you, reliability is when you repeat the exact same study again and again and again. So in this case, we see that the person conducting the research, the interviewer, has set guidelines on how to do the interviews, how to record the feedback, and what questions to answer. So that should be quite simple for you to explain why it's reliable. But if you're not sure, because some people do get a bit confused over that key term, just let me know. Okay, our next one is validity. So we're getting used to a new key term here, which is interviewer bias. Sorry, I'm struggling to see it in a minute because the cat's sat on the laptop, so I can't keep bringing it back around. So interview bias, we've used the term Hawthorne effect. It's when you change your behaviour because you're being watched. Interviewer bias is how we change our interactions because of how we speak with each other. So a person coming to interview you, you're very unlikely to be honest with, so you naturally change your answers even if it's just a little bit. And also the person's not allowed to expand on their answers. So while we've got statistics you can see in there that certain percentage of people can't afford holidays, think about what you don't find out with those statistics, what pictures you're not getting behind it, and explain why that would be a problem. Next question, only do if you're aiming for an A star, because it's just using evidence further to support your explanation. So if you can't do that question, don't worry. If you are aiming for an A star but you're still struggling, email me and I will give you a hand with it. Now the last one is a representative. So if you think they're quite quick to do and they don't take much time, you can get through a lot of people, that makes them more representative. But finally as well, the response rates are higher with questionnaires. Now this is because it's easier to kind of throw away or forget about a questionnaire than it is to turn someone down face to face. So many of us, if someone asked, like with official information, came to the door and said, please can you do a structured interview for us, it's hard to say no, so we'll say yes, which makes the response rate higher. Now overall, in terms of evaluation, what we might want to do, we've identified some problems with its lack of validity, but there is something about and we can use this as evaluation. There is something about structured interviews that gives them a massive benefit over questionnaires which don't have interviewer bias, and that's the fact that I don't know, 1/5 of the population is illiterate. So that goes up even higher if you go to poorer areas of society or prisons. So what this means is structured interviews can get you more valid data than questionnaires, because you're, rather than people just not understanding questionnaire and ticking whatever, you can be there to explain to people key terms they don't understand, or read, and you're reading things out for people who can't read things. Hope you guys are all having a nice time and you've survived your first week of isolation, and look forward to seeing you all soon. Remember, email me if you've got any problems. Cheers, bye.